everybody, my name is Sheila or SL Reads, and today I'm going to be talking about my least favorite books of 2018. I just want to put a disclaimer here that I did not read these books with the intention of disliking them. Most of them I read expecting to like them, or expecting to at least have mixed reviews on them. The first book on this list is Otherworld by Jason Segel and Kirsten Miller. This book I read for the Winter Biannual Bibliothon at the beginning of 2018, and this was the book that they selected for everybody to read. And since I was participating, I wanted to do as many of the different prompts as I could, and that one was the easiest, and so I just did it. I have many issues with this book. I have a detailed review for it down below if you want to read more into it. I think this is an awful book. It has an interesting premise. I adore video games, and this is about somebody who goes into a virtual reality, like the VR headset sort of video game, but the stakes are a lot higher. He ends up having something like implanted in his brain, and people can actually die instead of just dying in the game. I had many issues with this. The main character is so unlikable, and besides that, he's just disgusting. He feels very entitled as a man to his love interest, who for some reason does have actual feelings for him, which is a big shock for me. He's constantly just like disgusting in the things that he says and the entitlement that he feels. The book was just dripping with slime, and I was so disgusted by it. I also feel that the Chosen One plot is kind of overdone at this point. I feel like everybody kind of feels that, but it was just so annoying to have all these people actually saying you're the chosen one in this book, and he was just like the worst chosen one. Like, I can't believe there's gonna be a sequel. I hated this book. Ugh! I feel like you could be spending your time on more worthwhile pursuits, I promise you. The next book was Barely a Lady by Cassandra Khan. I went into this expecting it to be a fantastic book, and I was really let down by it. I was really interested in this novella because it has a lot of representation. There's lots of supernatural elements of this. The main character is a werebear, which is like a werewolf, except she turns into a bear. There's fat representation, and there's also bisexual representation, so I was very excited. One issue I had with it is that it was kind of marketed to me as being bisexual representation, but they never say that she's bisexual, which I was very annoyed with. I feel that there is a stigma around bisexuality that is perpetuated through this novel. You're only valid if you are actively being bisexual and actively being a lesbian if you're a woman, or a gay man if you're a man, but that's not what bisexuality is. But it kind of just made her hate this man who she had like a connection with, and then fall in love with this lady who was barely even mentioned on the page, so I was just very annoyed by it. It was a novella, so there wasn't a lot happening besides that, but I just felt very let down by it, and I was expecting to really enjoy it. The next book that I want to talk about is Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie. I might have read this for a readathon, I'm really not sure, but I wanted to read this for a while because the movie adaptation of this came out last year or the year before. I'm really not sure when it came out, and I had like been putting it off for a while, really wanted to read it, and I finally read it and was just very disappointed. The mystery that I'm really used to is like Nancy Drew and Scooby-Doo-esque mysteries, like not really hardcore, and I was kind of going into this expecting it to be more hardcore. Agatha Christie is one of the most well-known authors in the world, and most well-known mystery authors in the world, and I read this and I was just very disappointed. This is going to be a spoiler alert. If you have not read this, just skip to the point where I'm holding the next book, and I will be done talking about this. But my issue with this was the ending, was the culprit. It's everybody. I was expecting it to be like one person, and I finally got to the point where I was like, oh, I think I know who it is. It's like the Duke or the Duchess. And it turns out literally every person like stabbed this man. There were all these conflicting pieces of evidence, and I was very confused by it, but I was like, oh, it's gonna like all be something very spectacular, Sherlock Holmes-esque sort of thing. The protagonist was also very hard to understand. I'm used to reading from an omniscient third-person perspective. Protagonists that I usually read, like, you understand what's going on inside their brain, but Hercule Poirot really keeps it to himself, and that was kind of difficult for me because I was very confused by all of the evidence, and eventually he just like lays it all out very exposition-like, and I was just kind of annoyed by that. I wish he would have just done it as he went and been like, oh, this is what this means, and this is what this means. But I don't know. I just really did not like this. I have other Agatha Christie books that I want to read, and hopefully they're better than this, like And Then There Were None is one of her most famous ones, so I'm still planning to read that at some point, but I'm definitely not prioritizing it because of how much I disliked that book. The next book on this list is Call Me By Your Name by Andre Aciman. So there is a lot of controversy around this book, and also the subsequent movie adaptation of it that came out in 2018. I completely understand why. So the main issue with this novel is that it involves a romance between a 24-year-old and a 17-year-old. There is, of course, the fact that it is set in Italy, so perhaps customs are different. It's just very suspicious. And I saw the movie, and I was wondering how it compared to the book. And the thing is like, you cannot ignore the entire story is about this relationship, and I feel like it is the worst time for it to be coming out, especially during the Time's Up movement and during the Me Too movement, and it is just very slimy, I guess is the word. Most of the books I'm describing involve slimy situations. And also, if you do want to consume this story in any format, the movie is very aesthetically pleasing, and also this book is written in a stream of consciousness sort of manner, and so it is kind of hard to read all the way through because it does not stop. It's just a 17-year-old's brain very confusing, very slimy. And the final thing that I want to talk about is a graphic novel series, which is Fence by C.S. Picot. There are two reasons that I decided to pick up a few of these graphic novel issues, and the first one was that I have read a series by C.S. Picot before, which was the Captive Prince trilogy, which now looking back on it is kind of a suspicious and slimy trilogy, but at the time I did enjoy it, and so because I liked the writing style of the author, I thought that it might be an interesting read. The other reason was that I have read sports-related graphic novels before, and since I enjoy graphic novels and also am getting more into sports, I was like, why not read this graphic novel about fencing? Nothing really happens is my biggest issue with it, and also I went into it expecting there to be like so much representation because the author has written LGBTQ characters before, and also covers of the graphic novel issues have like the characters entwined, and like it seems like there's gonna be like a love-hate relationship or an enemies to lover sort of thing, but nothing happens. Like, I was reading the single issues. I think they just came out with the first volume in like a bind-up sort of version. I was reading them on my Kindle. I just did not think that it was worth it. Nothing was happening. I wasn't really interested in fencing. Like, it wasn't making me interested. The other graphic novel that I was referencing was Check Please by Ngotsi Okazu, which is absolutely fantastic. It's about hockey, and so having learned about hockey in this sort of manner and not really getting the same sort of thing from Fence was kind of disappointing because I was expecting them to have these similarities. So I just ended up being a little disappointed by it. I feel like if I'm going to spend my time reading graphic novels and also spending $4 or $5 on a single issue of something, it might as well be something I like rather than something I'm not really that interested in. I also think that's a bit of a steep price just for like one issue. Like, a lot of issues of graphic novels are like $1 to $2, and if you're only getting like 23 pages and you're spending that much money, it just doesn't really seem worth it. So that is the end of my list of least favorite books of 2018. I'm sorry if you enjoyed these books, with the exception of Call Me By Your Name, which I knew was going to be slimy from the get-go. I was expecting to enjoy these books, and I'm also disappointed that I did not. Let me know down below if you have thoughts on these books or what books you did not like this year. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.